Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to never miss a video from us.
Hello everyone. Today we have with us Mr. Siddharth Chaurasia, who has over 6 years of experience in strategic management, project management, and customer relationship management, currently working at Value Labs Private Limited. He completed his bachelor's in business administration from Maharaja Surajmal Institute and his master's in business administration from ICFAI University. He is certified in strategic management, Six Sigma Green Belt, Agile project management, Scrum Master, and corporate strategy. On behalf of Vskills, I welcome you to this interview, sir, and I hope you
Thank
have a
you.
good time with us today.
Sure.
Right. So, sir, I would like to ask you from the very first question which I had in my mind, what are the factors to consider when crafting tactics to achieve organizational objectives?
Sure. So, I believe it is very important to understand what is project management and what kind of tactics and what are the tactics which needs to be taken care of from project manager's perspective, right? So, in order to understand that, one needs to understand what project management basically is, right? So, I would try to define this before moving forward
Of
to
course.
just set the tone. Okay. So project can be defined as a series of tasks that need to be completed to reach a specific outcome. Okay. And management can be defined as designing and maintaining an environment in which individuals working together in group can efficiently accomplish their aims. Taking these to and trying to relate this with your question, which was crafting the tactics to achieve organizational objectives. I believe it is very important for a project manager to read the mind of an organization. Okay. And for this, it is very important that a project manager is clearly aware about the vision and mission of an organization. So once a manager is clearly aware of the vision and mission of an organization, then he can proceed forward and think about the approach that he needs to take. Okay, there are multiple approaches, but I'll try to cover the most basic ones here. So the most basic ones are pestle analysis and SWOT analysis. PESEL is nothing but political, economical, social, technological, legal, and environmental analysis of a project.
Right.
And SWOT analysis can be strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. Okay, so once you are aware of what environmental factors can affect your project and what are the strengths and weaknesses of your project and other opportunities that you can explore, threats which can impact your project, then you will be in a pretty good shape to present yourself and to work on your project accordingly. Okay, and once you are through with these approaches, then you can plan for the evaluation. Okay,
Hmm.
evaluation can be further done in terms of marketplace, uh, where you want to place yourself in the market, or in terms of positioning or the competitive landscape that is there. Okay, so if, let's say, if you are building a tool which can let's say, help in the chatting platform, then you should be clearly aware about the market landscape or the competition around the same, right? Until unless you are bringing something new to the market, or if you are not aware about the current market leaders and what they possess and why they are the market leaders, until you do the research around the same, you won't be able to succeed.
Hmm.
Okay, this is something which is also very much used in in the world of strategic management. So once we go through with this, then we are into the final stage of setting our goals properly. And
Hmm.
here again, we can set our goals in multiple parameters, but again, I'll try to be specific to the most common ones. So in the PMI, or as per the project management, there's one terminology that goals should be very smart goals. Okay,
Right.
here the smart refers to specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Okay,
Hmm.
I'll try to be more specific on these terms. Okay, so the first one, S, refers to specific, and the goal should be specific, not vague. It should be pinpoint
Right.
so that people can understand what they need and what
Hmm.
a specific goal is referring to.
Hmm.
Okay. Then the second comes M. M refers to measurable. any goal should be quantifiable. It should not be just qualitative. You should be like, let's say if you are working on a project, you should be aware of how much revenue we are expected to generate out of it. That is in terms of quantifiable measures, right?
Right.
Then, in terms of A refers to achievable. The goal which you are setting should at least be achievable for you guys. It
Yes.
should not be a
Yes.
distant dream for your company, right?
Yes.
Then R refers to relevant. Uh, Whatever you are building right now should be relevant in the future as well. You don't want to develop a product which becomes obsolete on the very next day, right?
Yes. Yes.
Then time bound. Time bound refers to T refers to time bound. Okay, so it
Hmm.
should any project should have a very definite timeline. Like in these days, projects are running on agile basis where the scope is not very much clear. Even in that term, no project can run for eternity.
I
Right?
agree.
At
Hmm.
least after delivering the basic requirements, we can uh, th- consider a project to be closed, and based on the new requirements that we'll be getting or the new issues that we'll be observing, we'll be running the next sprint with the required resources only. Okay,
Right.
so
Right.
goals should be very specific. Let's say if you are starting your project with 100 resources, and after delivering the requirements, you can't keep those 100 resources still with you just to work on the issues that might come up. For those
Yes.
issues, you need a very specific set of people that can handle that thing, right?
Yeah. Right. Right.
So that brings financial validation also into consideration. Let's say if you are the example that I just considered of 100 people or so, so the expected financial returns are also very much important while setting up the goals. You should be clearly aware of the return which you will be obtaining out of it, the or how to make the optimum utilization of resources, because resources will also be build, right? Nothing comes for free.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes. I agree. Hmm.
And once these things are taken care of, at the very end you can also plan for the risk, because there's
Right.
always a risk attached to a project. Nothing comes without a risk. In project management, this is a very often statement that we use, right?
Hmm.
And as per PMI or as per Agile, there are basically four main tricks or techniques which we can say to manage the risk. The first is avoid, the second is reduce, then the third is transfer, and the fourth is accept. Either you can avoid a risk to some extent, okay,
Hmm.
or you can reduce a risk,
Hmm.
okay, then either you can transfer it to some other entity,
Right.
right, or fourth, you accept the risk that is coming and you plan for it, or you plan how to counter it or to
Yes.
minimize its effect on your company.
I agree.
Okay,
Hmm.
so that's how companies' tactics should be drafted, by taking care of the vision and mission, by selecting the right approach for your company or for your tactic, and then proper evaluation of the market and factors, related factors, and then deciding your goals accordingly and keeping a backup plan ready.
That's a very detailed and systematic way of approaching to any project.
Yes,
So,
yes.
is this very different for different organizations, sir? Like you said, there are many techniques, PESTEL and SWOT. So, is it like different organizations use a specific different kind of approaches?
Yes. It may not just depend upon the organization, but it may also differ based on the projects.
Hmm.
Okay. So if you are running any internal project of a company for which you are expecting to gain the benefits internally only, okay.
Right. Right.
Let's say if you are building a portal for your HR team to record the attendance and everything, right? In
Hmm.
that case, you might not need much of a competitor analysis, right? You better understand what are your requirements, and you can ask your developers to work on it accordingly. In that case, you don't need much of a research work to be done.
Yes.
But just in
Yes.
case if you are building something for the market, for the masses, or if you are planning to push something in the market, in that
Hmm.
case you would need a proper research so that you don't end up spending lakhs or crores of money and without gaining anything,
Yes.
right?
Makes sense. Makes sense. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
So, can you explain the red flags in project management and how to identify them?
Mhm. So red flags are kind of indicators or warning that hey, something is really wrong and you need to address it quickly. It's kind of a warning only, okay.
I agree. Yes.
And the common reasons why a red flag can be raised, or is usually raised can be milestones that whenever we have a schedule delay, right? If
Hmm.
the project is deviating from the initial milestones, then a red flag should be raised ideally. If
Hmm.
the cost is getting overdone, if we are
Hmm.
expending way beyond our initial expectations, then the red flag should be raised. Then the third
Hmm.
can be quality. If we are
Hmm.
not meeting the expected quality, right, then again the red flag can be raised. And finally, I would say it's resources, because resources are the ones who are going to work with you, right? If you don't have the right amount of resources with you, if there's a shortage of resources, or if the resources are not that much skilled to deliver what you are expecting, that again that should raise red flags in your project. Okay.
Yes. Hmm.
Apart from that, there can be a few more reasons, but they are largely dealt with properly in the recent times, like disconnected team members. Nowadays, companies have proper communication channels and chatting platforms through which team members are properly connected, right? Scope creep is something which is very much there in the agile environment.
Hmm.
I'll try to brief this. Scope creep is a scenario in which requirements are not clearly defined and keep on increasing from time to time, and they are not very much documented as well, right? So
Hmm.
this is something which agile project managers usually come across, because if there is a very big amount of scope creep, then it will lead to loss of time and increase amount of expenditure. So apart from that, there is another point which I would like to highlight based on my experience. I don't know it might be relevant, whether it is relevant for you guys or not, but based on my experience, there are few young project managers who think or who assume that the deviation is very small,
Hmm.
right? And they assume that everything will be fine,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
which again leads to lots of delays and lots of chaos in the project management for the project managers at the later stages, and even for the management,
Right.
right? So the assumption that everything will be fine by itself is a
Hmm.
very big factor in the project management, why red flags are raised. This is something which I have learned from my project, from my experience, and there's no project manager who would say uh, that he hasn't done anything wrong in his career. See, there is always a scope for improvement. I know where I was wrong. Based on that, I am easily able to communicate that, right?
Yes. Yes.
Uh, so just to avoid such red flags, there are some tactics which agile agile project managers are using these days. So these can be taking reference from Scrum and Agile methodologies. These can be short monitoring cycle.
Hmm.
People try to run a sprint of 1 week, 2 week, usually 2 week, not even 3 week. People mostly run a sprint of 2 weeks to evaluate the progress on a timely basis. But if they are running a sprint of 2 weeks, they are having a time to demonstrate the what has been delivered in a current deployment to the customer twice in a month, right?
Hmm.
Which is a good rate, right? So
Okay.
this is another thing which project managers can do. Then a control mechanism should be there to bring the
Hmm.
deviations under control.
Hmm.
And finally, I would say communication should also be good, because communication is a very important part of a project. If you are not communicating properly, you won't be able to draft the requirements properly, you won't be able to communicate the requirements properly to the development team, you won't be able to communicate what has been done to the client properly. So communication is the biggest factor in the project management, and the PMI also rightly says so. And minutes of meetings should be there for all key and important meetings. And another point that I would like to say is there should be an open door culture in the organization,
Hmm.
so that young people who are there can easily connect to the management. We are expected to follow a single line of communication sequence, then obviously there would be delays. So that is why in these days, open door culture or the grapevine communication approach is expected and is
Hmm.
followed widely.
Hmm.
So this is what I would suggest is a good way to identify and highlight the red flags to the management, and even avoid them in your projects.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
So, as a project manager yourself, what methods do you use to assess operational excellence?
I would say in simple words, operational excellence can be measure of the performance of production lines, of a company, or let's say how faster we are able to produce goods as compared to our competitors without sacrificing the quality. This is
Yes.
operational effectiveness as per Six Sigma. Okay,
Yes.
so I think it's a misbelief that actual performance can be 100%. This is the same statement which is there in the Six Sigma books. Even in Six Sigma, where people there's very less amount of defect that is observed. There's 99.99966% accuracy. Still, there's some scope of defects, right?
Hmm.
So, performance can never be 100%, right? There are many factors which are going to affect the operational effectiveness of a company, right? So three, I would say, are the most common ones. One is the performance, as I just said, right?
Yes.
Machine, humans, or production line can never operate at the same speed. It's a misbelief that actual performance can be 100%. There'll
Hmm.
always be some defects in the products, and the only way that you can try to reduce it is to see what led to those defects and see
Right.
how you can minimize it. That way you can try to, you will be able to minimize the uh, trigger points of those defects, at least
Hmm.
if not the entire defect range. Okay,
Right.
then another thing which project managers can try is to make sure that there's 100% availability of the assets that are required, maybe
Hmm.
the resources or the machinery or the support staff or etc which is needed, or the supporting equipments or assets that are needed. You need to make sure that everything is in place, everything is in order, so that whenever there you feel there's going to be a shortage, there's something in the backup which can take its place.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
so my recommendation to improve the over operational effectiveness is sustainable strategies should be drafted. Okay, as I just said, everything should be in order,
Hmm.
right? So that also refers to the sustainability of a project. If
Hmm.
let's say you are having 10 resources, all 10 of them resign at the same time, that is something which is a very rare scenario, but at least
Yes.
you should be having someone whom you can pull from the pool or some other. Then that's a great pleasure that you can have in your project
Hmm.
if your company has a pool of good qualified staff, right?
Hmm.
Or the right resource allocation, if you can put right resources to the right work. Okay,
Hmm.
if you, let's say if you have a Java developer, okay, with you, who has only worked on Java, and now you are asking him to work on data analysis part. Okay,
Hmm.
maybe he'll be able to do it for you, but he won't be able to be that much effective as compared to a proper data analyst, right?
Hmm.
So it is very important to have a proper set of skill sets or the right set of human resources or the machinery with you in order
Right.
to deliver the project effectively.
Yes.
And right infrastructure is also needed. Let's say if you are working, or if you are working in a manufacturing sector, right, and you
Hmm.
are expected to deliver heavy goods, then you can't simply operate in an open ground. You need a proper factory with proper precautionary measures. Everything should be in line, or and there should be proper staff who can handle the machinery, right? You can't simply run it in a park or open land, right? The right
Yes.
infrastructure and adequate assets are needed in that case. And last and foremost, there should always be focus on innovation and creativity. So
Hmm.
if you want to grow further, instead of buying new machinery, you can also see if there is anything, like we Indians are good in jugaad, right? See if
Yes.
there is any jugaad or any creative measure with which you can deliver
Yeah.
more of the goods within the same amount of time and with
Yes.
less defects.
So you are able to break down the problem from the beginning to the end. You are breaking down into different things like resources and risk management, and then you are checking each and every point whether they are reaching the checkpost and whether it's
Correct,
happening smoothly. So like
correct,
you said, it's impossible to go 100%, but our approach has to be to reach the best of of our limits, right?
correct,
We have
correct.
to approach towards perfection. That's what I
Yes,
understood.
yes,
Okay.
exactly.
So, sir, like Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until they get punched on the face. So, what is your opinion, and how relevant is this thought in the current scenario of project management?
Uh, I think yes, it is very much valid in the world of project management even now, as we often come across such occurrences that are unexpected, and such events can have minimal to drastic impact. Okay,
Yes.
uh, see, risk is something, as I said earlier as well, risk is something which you can never ignore or which you can never take away from a project, right?
Yeah.
So there will always be some risk attached to a project, and you should always have some buffer in terms of days and costs to overcome the impact of such unexpected events.
Hmm.
Okay, so in the world of management, we basically have two types of reserves. One is contingency reserve, and another is management reserve. Okay,
Hmm.
so contingency reserves are for the risks that are always attached to a project.
Hmm.
Okay, and management reserves are to deal with the unexpected events that can't be planned.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you are maintaining these two reserves, at least in case of any unexpected events, you would be having sufficient amount of buffer with you in terms of money to
Hmm.
deal with them properly. Okay,
Yes.
and it is upon company to decide how much reserve that they are expected to maintain. There is no money which we can say, or there is no formula that we are going to say is a good formula. It is based on the current uh, uh, marketplace, or the positioning of a company, or the amount of expenditure that is required in a specific product. There are multiple such initiatives which can collectively help a project manager to decide how much reserve they need.
Yes.
And then project managers should always have a clear communication plan in place to provide stakeholders with the updates.
Hmm.
Okay, so see, in case of any unexpected events, at least the higher management should always be aware of such things, so that they can also guide you, because they are the ones who are more experienced than you, who are having better knowledge on multiple aspects, right? So
Hmm.
never shy of reaching out to them for asking your help, and always have a proper communication plan, so that you and the other team members are clearly aware of whom they are expected to reach in which specific scenario.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So I would say that if there is a risk of such unexpected events,
Hmm.
we should be prepared with a risk assessment matrix and a
Hmm.
contingency plan to effectively use the management reserve in our project.
Right. I wanted to ask you that there has been a huge impact of artificial intelligence on project management, and it has been predicted in many reports that 80% of today's project management tasks will be automated very soon, and as AI will take over the basic project management tasks. So, do you think that AI can ever take over the human intelligence?
I would say no. AI
Hmm.
can't take over the human intelligence, at least in the near future. See,
Hmm.
AI is a field of computer science dedicated to solving problems which otherwise require human intelligence.
Hmm.
Okay, so AI based tools can take over the administrative functions and other such functions that are there, like sending reminders or day to day updates, etc.
Hmm.
But they cannot totally act on the behalf of a project manager as of now. They will definitely be able to free up the project managers in taking the complex decisions by themselves,
Hmm.
by managing the tasks which require lower complexity, and which doesn't require much of a decision making.
Right. Right.
Okay, so AI tools can analyze data from current and previous sprints or projects, and provide the useful insights to the management team and the project
Hmm.
managers. They can help in the predictive analytics as well for
Hmm.
project management. Let's see, if you are going at this pace, how much you will be able to achieve and such things. These predictions that are there, that they can do in the current scenario, based on how much these technologies have matured. Okay,
Yes.
so these predictions can help the PMs in with the automated risk estimations or adaptive resource management,
Yeah.
but they can't. actually replace the human intelligence. Humans are actually the ones who have developed the AI, right?
Yes, I
So
agree.
they can't actually ignore the instant decision making which humans have to take in some point of time, right?
Hmm. Okay. So, sir, the Kanban board is increasingly being integrated into more structured project management. So, how does it help to a project manager?
Uh, I would say Kanban is a Japanese system which is used to assign the tasks to the individual, right? So agile project managers also use the Kanban board and Jira tool to assign the task or the task related instructions, mention the dates or the story points that they need to mention. And it is also very easier to use with visual interface and ability to see what everyone is working on. Okay,
Yes.
so I would say Kanban board is a very good initiative or good technique to manage the project and assign the task of the team members. Okay,
Hmm.
but and these days multiple project managers are using different tools of such kind, not just Jira. There are many other tools in the market which can be used uh, for the Kanban kind of features. Okay,
Hmm.
and even Gantt is very actively used. Even
Hmm.
though
Hmm.
Gantt is very much different, but project managers are also using that to a very good extent. Okay,
Right.
Gantt Gantt chart is a chart which shows the start date and end date.
Hmm.
So along with the Gantt, Jira has this thing as well. Gantt and Kanban
Hmm.
both, to show the overall picture from which date to which date a task will be running, and
Right.
which task, and Kanban can show you which tasks are in which specific section. I'll
Hmm.
try to brief you about the Kanban
Of course, please.
little forward, sure, okay. But I was just trying to tell you that Kanban alone cannot be the one-shot solution. It
Hmm.
still needs other tools and techniques to be more effective for our project managers.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Coming back to the Kanban board, it is a simple board with multiple sections in terms of vertical and horizontal. Okay,
Hmm.
each vertical section or column is a stage of a project.
Hmm.
Okay, so the Kanban board gives teams and project managers an overview at a glance. Okay,
Right.
in this is the to do task. This is the section for in progress tasks. This is the section for testing. Then the final deployment. Okay,
Hmm.
these can be a few sections based on the IT world, but
Hmm.
it uh, people can use different sections based upon their requirements. Okay,
Right.
there can be 5 sections or 6 sections based upon the requirement of a team. Okay,
Hmm.
and horizontal lines on the Kanban board are called swim lanes. Okay,
Right.
and you will find this in the Jira. The people who have worked on Jira would be able to find this in the settings section.
Hmm.
And swim lanes can help to separate different work items, activities, team services, etc.
Hmm.
Okay, so Kanban board is mix of both swim lanes and the columns. It is
Hmm.
very much like a chessboard only. You
Okay.
need to put one thing next to the other, and you keep stacking it in a specific section
Hmm.
or swim lane to clearly identify which task is in which section and in which state right now.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. Hmm.
and the we stack cards on the project board, on the Kanban
Hmm.
board. Now we are coming to the most important point. Okay,
Hmm.
so these are the Kanban cards that represent individual task or the work item which needs to be performed. Okay,
Hmm.
so each Kanban card is filled with multiple kind of information about maybe the assignee. Let's say, taking the example of the Jira board itself, we have a assignee section: start date, end date, due date,
Hmm.
right? And information about a specific task like description or history section.
Yeah.
But a traditional Kanban board only has the task name and a very brief description about it. Okay,
Hmm.
the Jira which we are currently using is a very detailed one. You just simply click on the ticket and it will open up and show you the entire list of details, but it cannot obviously be done on a simple piece of paper,
Hmm.
right? So I believe Kanban board is a pretty good thing if you are using, but it would always be better to use something else along with it to
Hmm.
gain the best out of it. One suggestion that I have gained that I personally use is a Gantt. Okay,
Hmm.
so this is one thing which you can use, and I won't say it's not a good tool. It's a really good tool. But it would also need some partner along with it to be more effective. Uh,
Right.
I would before closing, I would like to highlight some positive points of the Kanban as well.
Hmm.
Like it is very easier to use. You can put anyone who's a newbie; they'll be easily able to grasp it within minutes. It is
Hmm.
not a very detailed process, not a very detailed thing. It is
Hmm.
simply pick and drop functionality which one needs to take care of. Okay,
Right.
and it is very easier to use. Provides a very good view to the people. Right, you
Hmm.
when you are using Kanban, you are clearly aware of which task is in which state. You
Hmm.
don't need to find it very thoroughly, and you are able to limit the number of tasks in a specific sequence so that
Hmm.
nothing gets piled up. Okay,
Yes. Yes.
so in that way, you are also able to identify and remove the bottlenecks that are there in your specific project, right?
Hmm.
So this will ultimately help you to improve and speed up the workflow.
So, sir, I would like you to highlight the difference between project management and agile project management, and can agile ever replace project management?
Uh, to understand whether Agile can replace the project management or not, first you would need to understand what is project management or traditional project management versus Agile project management.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so the traditional project management focuses on good amount of upfront planning.
Hmm.
Okay, the processes there are very rigid, and you need to finish one task first before moving on to the next one.
Hmm.
Okay, and all the all the tasks are to be performed in a sequential order. You can't jump from one task to another, from one stage to another.
Hmm.
Okay, so it leaves no scope for changing of the requirement once the project document or requirement document is drafted and the budget and everything is set. Then you need to work on it. There's nothing going to be addition which comes your way.
Right.
Okay, so you have to complete every task within a pre-planned timeline and budget criteria. Everything has been drafted in the project planning stage itself. Okay,
Hmm.
whereas in the agile project management, which is widely used these days, especially in the world of IT world, right, IT
Hmm.
sector. So this came into existence because in many scenarios, people are not even aware of what they actually need. So the agile came into the picture. Okay,
Right.
uh, the word agile itself means to move forward quickly
Yes.
or mobility.
Yes.
Okay,
Hmm.
so unlike the traditional project management, it is non-linear in nature because requirements can come at any point of time, and that's why project managers are expected to be fluid, and the
Hmm.
techniques are also expected to be fluid
Yes.
and incremental as well because sprints are going to be done in incremental basis.
Hmm.
So the approaches should also be incremental. You can't be very rigid that we are going to do this in the single go.
Hmm.
You are going to deliver a specific set of requirements. You are going to demonstrate it to the customer. You are going to receive feedbacks from them, and based on that you are going to again go back to your backlog and see what next you need to pick and what changes you need to do in
Yes.
the current implementation. So
Hmm.
this relies heavily on the customer collaboration and requires lots of teamwork and flexibility.
Hmm.
Project, I would say, requires a lot of interconnectivity,
Hmm.
then agile is the right way to go. Okay,
Right.
so in agile, I would like to like summarize. In agile, work is delivered continuously instead
Hmm.
of delivering at the very end.
Hmm.
Okay, and the feedbacks are continuously received. This is the very basic difference between the traditional and agile project management. And now coming back to your point that whether project management or whether agile can replace the project management or not, right?
Hmm.
So I would say traditional project management works well for small and low budget projects because they know, let's say if there's a small company, right? They have very limited budget. They know they whatever they need to deliver is within that specific amount itself, right? Then
Yes.
they'll draft their requirements accordingly, they'll plan for the scope accordingly, and everything will be based on that only, because they'll also be considering the timelines, because
Hmm.
resources will be working in that specific duration, right?
Yes.
So in that case, traditional project management would provide you lots of techniques, and you would be able to track the project very closely. Whereas Agile won't be that much helpful for you in that case, because Agile doesn't focus much on the documentation.
Hmm.
Here, I'm not saying that Agile doesn't focus on documentation. There's a very minute difference. Traditional project management, we have lots of documentation that we have to maintain, but in case
Hmm.
of Agile, there's very limited, not zero, but very limited set of documentations which project managers are expected to maintain, and that doesn't cover that specific set of costs and budget estimate, within which we need to operate.
Yes.
So, and similarly, for very large projects, let's
Hmm.
say if you are building a dam, right? You can't say that I'll first work on the upper part, and then I'll work on the middle part, and then I'll think of how to stop the river.
Hmm. Yes.
Right? You need to build it from bottom to top.
Yes.
Right. So in that case as well, you need to take the traditional project management approach. Okay.
Hmm.
And resource planning is another factor which is done very much in a very better way in the traditional
Hmm.
project management, because you have proper time and money estimations with you of
Yes.
how much money and time would be required. So just to summarize all of these things, if you have no clear vision on how your final product would look like, then
Hmm.
agile is the way to go.
Hmm.
But if you have a proper picture and you know how your project would look like and what all
Hmm.
things would be there, or what all features and functionalities will be there, right?
Hmm.
In that case, traditional project management approach is the one that you should be adopting for.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the detailed answer, sir.
Thank you.
So in our discussion, you mentioned a lot of tools, to use in project management. So what are the latest tools you would recommend to learn to increase the project efficiency? Just to name a few, the important ones, if you may.
I can definitely name a few just for the name's sake, but to be honest, no new tool has been able to grab the eyeballs and attention of the project managers in a very
Hmm.
recent point of time.
Hmm.
PMs still prefer to use the tried and tested project management tools with which they are very much comfortable with, which are already offering lots of features and almost all the things that they need. And
Right.
one of them is Jira. I
Hmm.
have been actively naming this tool because it
Yes.
offers almost everything. It has a complete marketplace for itself, from where you can download the plugins as well and
Yeah.
install it along with your Jira. And but the only drawback for this is this Atlassian tool is slightly expensive. Okay,
Hmm.
so that's why people look for the alternative. Or otherwise, if it is within your budget, just go for it.
Hmm.
Jira is a task tracking tool which can provide you with the features to assign a ticket, keep a record of the tickets, related details, manage the tickets in a specific Kanban board or Gantt view
Hmm.
or such things.
Hmm.
And it is very easier to use. You'll have pick and drop functionalities for most of the thing, and you can train anyone on a basic Jira functionalities within a single day itself.
Hmm.
And there's another tool from the Microsoft this time, which is slightly complicated and looks very much like Excel, but
Hmm.
offers lots more functionalities for the project management. This is Microsoft Project. It
Okay.
is majorly used in planning of the projects, setting up of milestones, deadlines, establishing risk relationship, managing the Slack, etc. It is
Hmm.
widely used in case of traditional project management, not much in case of agile world, but in case of traditional project management, it is widely used because it can help you to set up relationships as well. Even Jira
Right.
can help you to set up the relationships, but it doesn't provide you that Excel kind of a view. People who are more
Hmm.
comfortable with that Excel kind of a view and the Gantt, they
Hmm.
prefer to use the Microsoft projects. Okay,
Okay. Hmm.
so as you were asking about about some other tools as well, right? So I would say apart from Jira and Microsoft projects, you can see Rally and
Hmm.
Monday.com.
Mm-hmm.
They are comparatively not that great, but it's still very much effective. You will get your work done easily
Mm-hmm.
to Rally and Monday.com. There are many more in the market. If you just search project management tools, even in the Play Store, you will get n number of applications.
Hmm. Okay. So we're coming towards the end of the interview. So I would like to
Okay.
ask you one last and the most important question, I think, is what advice would you give to the candidates who wish to get into this field, project management?
Okay. So the first thing is, don't just run after Agile, Scrum, and Safe Agile, etc. blindly.
Hmm.
Okay. Not all projects run after Agile. Not all projects run based on Scrum. Not all projects run on Scaled Agile, which is safe framework. Correct. So the traditional project management is still very much in use. It might
Right.
not be popular these days in the IT world, but still lots of its principles and functionalities are there and
Hmm.
widely used. And it is often blended with agile methodologies to create hybrid work models. See,
Hmm.
uh, agile might work for you, but might not work for some other person or for some other project which is running in parallel. So that's why
Hmm.
project managers often blend multiple methodologies and frameworks together to see which approach is working fine for them.
Yes.
Okay. Another thing that I would like to communicate is that Agile surely doesn't encourage much of a record keeping, but it doesn't discourages it entirely. You
Hmm.
need some sort of documentation to see what changes at least have been requested by the client side, where how many changes or what all impact it will be having onto your specific project, and how much delays it might lead, how much scope creep it might create, whether it can be delivered within the same timelines, or whether it can be delivered early or it would need more time, right? So
Yes.
again, don't be don't assume things.
Yes.
Try to get more details around it. Okay.
Yes. Hmm.
Another point can be that you have to be a good listener. In order to understand the requirements of the customer, you should listen to all the details attentively and make notes out of it. And also, you have to make sure that communication is not one way.
Hmm.
Communicate A good communication is always two way.
Yes.
Listen to what they are saying carefully, and then uh, or tell them as well, right? These are the points which you have noted. Is your understanding correct?
Hmm.
It's very important to get your understandings clarified,
Hmm.
because there can be a scenario where one person is communicating one thing, but you are interpreting it in a slightly different way,
Yes. Yes.
right? So it is always good to get that clarified firsthand.
Hmm.
Okay. So uh, another thing is, on some occasions, customers are not very sure what they want and how their final product would actually look like, right?
Hmm.
So be very patient in those scenarios, and try to understand the requirement and plan for demos, and plan for deployments accordingly.
Hmm.
Because this can happen with anyone. That's why Agile came into existence, right? Because this
Yes.
was observed on a very frequent note.
Hmm.
Okay, so if you are coming across a scenario, try to adjust yourself with it. You will be coming across many such scenarios in your career.
Hmm.
Don't hesitate to ask questions. Okay.
Yes.
And conflict resolution, this
Hmm.
can be a slightly debatable topic, but I'll tell you what I believe. Okay.
Hmm.
So conflict resolution is kind of an aspect which should be handled very carefully. As a project managers, we are expected to manage our team well, handle our team well, act as a servant leader, as what Agile speaks. Right?
Hmm.
You are a servant leader,
Hmm.
right? You are not supposed to dictate them, and you are not also supposed to let them fight and assume that everything will be fine by itself.
Hmm.
Just interact with them, try to bring them on a common ground, and see if anyone is correct and another person is not correct. Try to um, make them understand what is right without naming anyone.
Yes.
So
Yes.
this is what I believe, and other everyone has a different approach to deal
Yeah.
with, right?
I
This
agree.
is my approach with which I try to deal with such issues. And conflict is something which would happen very normally. At least
Hmm.
once in a week, you will obviously come across some or the other conflicts in your
Yes,
project,
yes, yes,
maybe with client or with your management or with your team, but it would
yes,
definitely happen. If not in a week, then obviously in couple of weeks or so,
yes.
you would definitely come across such issues.
Hmm.
And last and foremost, try to build commitment within your team and try to provide them with adequate challenges in their work. See,
Yes.
they should also be improving their individual work capacity or velocity from time to time.
Well, thank you so much, sir. This was a really, really enriching experience,
Thank
and
you.
for me especially, and I'm sure even our viewers will agree with that. Uh, and this is an amazing domain, project management.
Yes.
According to my interpretation, I learned a lot. There are so many tools. There is so much developments that needs to happen. Like you said about the AI, and then you told about the tools like Kanban and the Gantt, and you said that there are tools that needs to be developed still, and I'm sure they are on the works. I'm pretty sure about that.
Yeah.
So I on that note, let us end this interview. It was a really amazing experience.
Same
Thank
here.
you for all your knowledge, thank you for expressing this to all of us.
You're welcome.
Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to never miss a video from us.